What's up guys, it's Tommy here and welcome to a brand new video where we have to talk about Manchester City and the 115 charges labeled against them. You will get the latest about that investigation and the Premier League's independent commission is very close to reaching a verdict which will determine whether Manchester City will get relegated and what kind of punishment they will get. But they are starting a civil war. The Manchester City are starting a civil war in the Premier League because they are now not just fighting against the Premier League, but they are fighting against other clubs because Man United, Liverpool, Arsenal, Chelsea and other clubs are threatening to file a lawsuit against Manchester City claiming damages worth hundreds of millions of pounds of lost revenue because of Manchester City's cheating and rule breaking. A lot of clubs missed out on Premier League titles, the top four, Champions League, and some clubs even got relegated because of Manchester City's cheating. So Mike Keegan is reporting in the Daily Mail that Man City sent a new letter to all the Premier League clubs and the FA, the Football Association, blasting the proposed changes to sponsorship rules, and they are urging the Premier League clubs to not vote and to not implement these new sponsorship rules, which would prevent Manchester City from cheating in the future. I mean, this is absolutely blasphemous, disgraceful, disgusting what Manchester City are doing. And also Manchester City got slammed by the Premier League itself in an explosive 11-page letter accusing them of repeated and baseless assertions. So this is now a civil war between Manchester City, the Premier League and Premier League clubs as well. So the headline is that Man City ramp up civil war with the Premier League as Man City tell 19 rival clubs that new rules are unlawful in leaked 11-page letter, which is not true. The Premier League rules are lawful. Man City challenged the Premier League rules in 26 different counts, and the court only awarded Manchester City twice in those 26 cases that Man City were right. The other 24 cases, the Premier League rules are lawful. So what do you think about this case and what are the repercussions and what do you think about Manchester City's behavior? They behave like a zombie who don't know that they are dead yet. They are still walking around trying everything, but they will be found dead very soon. Hopefully, that's the best analogy that I heard on the internet. So let me know your thoughts down below, and if you enjoy these videos and if you want to keep updated, make sure to subscribe, leave a like on this video, and you can support my work on Patreon. Link is in the video's description so we can cover this story because the independent media is very silent about this Man City case. There are not many reporters, not many journalists reporting on this case, but I am. So if you want to support me and my work, a link is in the video's description. Just donate to my Patreon. It costs like $3 a month. It helps this channel keep running. So Man City have launched another attack on the Premier League as English football's civil war rumbles on, writes Mike Keegan. So they have written to 19 clubs, to all the 19 clubs and the FA, warning that the Premier League's proposed changes to sponsorship rules remain unlawful, and they raise the prospect of further legal action should they be given the green light when clubs meet next Friday. And Man City sent this email to all the other 19 clubs with an astonishing 11-page letter, which was intercepted by the Daily Mail that they received from the Premier League on Thursday. Man City received this 11-page letter from the Premier League. So the Premier League wrote this letter in which the Premier League itself strongly defends its position and accuses Manchester City of making repeated and baseless assertions. Manchester City initially took the Premier League to a tribunal for following amendments to its rules on associated parties transactions, those famous sponsorship rules. An independent panel ruled that sections of the rules were unlawful, in the most part because shareholder loans were excluded from the league's fair market value test. So Premier League Chief Executive Richard Masters wrote to clubs after the verdict, assuring them that amendments could be made quickly and effectively to the rules. That claim was rubbished by Manchester City's legal representative Simon Cliff, who wrote to all clubs to accuse Masters of attempting to mislead them. So Cliff, the Man City legal chief, is strongly in favor, Man City are strongly in favor, he says, of robust, effective and lawful regulation of related party transactions. However, he adds that the fact that an independent panel found several of the rules to be unlawful means that the whole system is void, and that the previous less stringent related party transaction rules is now back in force until any new regime is agreed. Simon Cliff says that the Premier League disputes this, and so the tribunal will rule on the state of play in the near future. In the meantime, common sense dictates that the Premier League should not rush into passing amendments, particularly ones which entail material legal risk, until the Premier League knows the outcome from the tribunal. And in what may be interpreted as a clear warning, Simon Cliff declares that Man City's strong desire to avoid any future costly legal disputes, and so it is critical that the Premier League gets it right this time round. The letter goes on to highlight three issues. The first is that Man City considered proposed amendments are also unlawful because they would introduce a retrospective exemption for shareholder loans from December 2021 until the new rule comes into effect. This exemption is one of the very few things that was found to be illegal in the recent arbitration. Cliff writes, it is not lawful to reintroduce it into the rules. The Man City executive also says that the proposal does not strike the right balance, as it allows certain clubs to benefit from shareholder loans, but also claims that addressing this issue is unfair because the clubs who took them did not know that the exemption was unlawful. His final point is that the Premier League is rushing its consultation and that it is essential to have the tribunal's verdict before any next steps. One very possible outcome, he says, is that the tribunal will declare that all of the associated party transaction rules are void and always have been. How can the clubs meaningfully discuss amendments to rules without knowing if those very rules even exist? So the Premier League responded to this very robustly in an 11-page letter. The letter to the Man City by the Premier League opens by accusing Man City of making repeated and baseless assertions that the league acted in a way contrary to its obligations as a regulator and it has misled clubs. That is false, according to the Premier League. Signed by the Premier League, it adds that it is implausible to suggest that the tribunal did not rule that the balance of the APT rules was lawful and rejects criticism of its subsequent consultation process, stating that Manchester City does not agree with the process, does not provide a credible basis to impugn it. The letter also accuses Man City of making meritless threats, rejects the notion that the proposed amendments are unlawful, and accuses Man City of tedious, tendencies and inaccurate interpretation of a call between clubs last month. And the Daily Mail tried to contact both Man City and the Premier League, but they declined to comment. So what do you think about this? This was the first part of the video and I wanted to discuss this because I think it's very, very interesting and not many media outlets and journalists are talking about it, the civil war between Manchester City and the Premier League, and I cannot wait until the Premier League's verdict on this 115 or 130 charges against Manchester City, because surely they will be found guilty of at least some of them. And I cannot wait until Manchester City get kicked out of the Premier League and get relegated. And the next topic is related to this one, because the four rivals targeting compensation because Manchester City cheated for more than 10 years, Arsenal, Liverpool, Tottenham and Manchester United have lodged legal notices reserving the right to seek a payout if Man City are found guilty of serious breaches. That's what the Times newspaper is reporting. So these four clubs have taken the step of formally registering possible compensation claims via arbitration before a potential statute of limitations deadline last week. The charges against Man City are still being heard by an independent commission, with the outcome not expected until maybe December or January. The commission can make an order for compensation to be paid, and it is understood that because of laws around time limits to register such claims, there was concern among the clubs that it would be too late to wait until the case had been resolved. So that's why these former registering possible compensation claims happened before the actual verdict came out. So the compensation notices were served after the 4 clubs were advised by lawyers there was a potential 6-year statute of limitations period dating from November the 5th, 2018, when the German website Der Spiegel first published the Football League's documents. Although Man City's alleged rule breaches date from 2009, the Limitation Act's 6-year period for legal claims for breaches of contract in the UK allows an exception where that breach has been concealed. That will allow the 6-year period to begin when details of the alleged breaches were made public. That makes sense because before 2018 we didn't know that Man City broke so many rules. There wasn't any information coming out about that, even though a lot of people suspected that we didn't have any evidence. But the German website Der Spiegel published the first documents in the Football League's documentation, and that those were the first pieces of evidence that proved or started, the whole legal case that proved, hopefully they will prove that Manchester City cheated and broke the rules. If the charges against Man City are proven, clubs could claim for loss of income, for missing out on Premier League titles, qualification for the Champions League or other European competitions over the course of several seasons. Remember, Manchester City started breaking rules and breaching rules since 2009. So that's a lot of seasons. And these damages could total hundreds of millions of pounds. Imagine if Man City have to pay that they will be absolutely bankrupt, even with the almost limitless amounts of money that their owners have. Clubs cannot sue each other through the courts under Premier League rules, but they can do so through arbitration under Rule X. 5 clubs applied for compensation when Everton were sanctioned for breaching profit and sustainability rules last season. Leeds, Leicester, Nottingham Forest, Burnley and Southampton. But those claims have since been withdrawn or they are still unresolved. In the case of Man City, lawyers are understood to have advised clubs that if they waited until the outcome of the hearing into the 115 alleged rule breaches, that there was a risk any compensation claim could be deemed to be out of time, so out of this 6-year period. And this is why I wanted to make this video, because not many newspapers and news outlets are making a big deal out of this. Because if Man City are found in serious breach and they are found liable for compensating the 4 clubs hundreds of millions of pounds, isn't that potentially curtains for Man City? Why isn't Sky Sports and other big news outlets talking about this? I tell you why, because it damages the Premier League, it damages the PR of the Premier League, and Sky Sports are in bed with the Premier League and with the PGMOL, so they will do everything and anything to preserve the image of the Premier League as a clean and legit competition, without any corruption, without any, malice, and without any dirty things going on. But we already know from the Gave It Good videos that there are lots of dirty and shady things going on inside the Premier League, inside the PGMOL. And this is a big deal, which more news outlets, more media outlets should be reporting on this. Leicester are a good example. 2 seasons in a row they came 5th, and they put huge amounts of money in trying to get back into Champions League football after, winning the title. And they got relegated eventually, and they have a lot of financial issues on top. What about all the clubs who came 18th and got relegated because of Man City taking up a space in the Premier League? It's going to be an absolute show if Man City are found guilty and liable, to the point that I think they might rule against financial compensation, because it has knock-on effects and impacts on all the way down to the football pyramid, and no one will want to figure out where the line is drawn. I think you can safely draw the line at the bottom of the Premier League and just compensate the clubs that got affected. So compensate the clubs that missed out on Champions League, Europa League or Conference League football, and you should compensate the clubs who finished in 18th place and got relegated because of Man City's cheating. And I really hope that the UK government doesn't get pressured by Saudi Arabia, because there are some really big ties and really big trade agreements and contract agreements between between the United Arab Emirates and the UK. We are talking about United Arab Emirates and Abu Dhabi, of course, because they are the owners of Manchester City, and the United Kingdom has some pretty hefty dealings with the Middle East, so not just the UK, not just Saudi Arabia, but the United Arab Emirates, Qatar and all kinds of countries, because the Middle East countries have huge investments in the UK property, and we buy a lot of oil from them. The UK buys a lot of oil from them. The idea of them putting pressure on the UK government is very real, and the UK politicians are pretty demonstratively easy to buy, as are a lot of politicians. And it was confirmed that the British Embassy in the United Arab Emirates have held discussions between members of the Foreign Office and their representatives, the United Arab Emirates representatives, about the charges against Manchester City, but they wouldn't release the details of the discussions because it wasn't in the public interest. How surprising, how lovely, isn't it? And this is my only worry, that because of how corrupt the football system is, Man City might just get away with it if they pay off the right people. But these arbitrators are very serious people who are in the independent commission. They won't be able to get paid off. They won't be able to get bribed, because these guys have been in the business for 30 years. It would come out if Man City tried bribing them. And this guy did his research. 22 billion pounds in trade between the United Kingdom and the United Arab Emirates in 2024 alone. And the year is not even finished yet. 22 billion pounds. That's an insane amount of money. The United Arab Emirates as a country brought 14 billion in UK imports, and they invested 7.7 billion pounds in the United Kingdom through various investments. So that's a pretty substantial. The Premier League is also worth 9 billion pounds to the UK GDP. So this is a huge deal, and that's why I'm a little bit afraid that the United Arab Emirates will just threaten the Premier League, and they will just threaten the United Kingdom to pull some of these investments, to pull some of these contracts, if Man City get punished. But hopefully truth and justice will prevail, and I will keep you guys updated on this story. So thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed this, have a nice day, see you later, goodbye.